Dracula by Bram Stoker, Chapter 26, Jonathan Harker's Journal. We found Hildesheim in his office, a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez. His arguments were pointed, we doing the punctuation, and with a little bargaining he told us what he knew. This turned out to be simple but important. He had received a letter from Mr. de V. of London, telling him to receive, if possible, before sunrise, so as to avoid customs, a box which would arrive at Galatz in the Tsarina Catherine. This he was to give in certain to a certain Petrov Skinsky, who was dealt with Slovaks, who traded down the river to the port. He had been paid for his work by an English banknote, which had been duly cashed for gold at the Danube International Bank. When Skinsky had come to him, he had taken him to the ship and handed over the box, so as to save porterage. This was all he knew. When we thought for Skinsky, we were unable to find him. One of his neighbours, who did not seem to bear him any affection, said that he had gone away 2 days before, no one knew whither. This was corroborated by his landlord, who had received by messenger the key of the house, together with the rent due, in English money. This had been between 10 and 11 o'clock last night. We were at a standstill again. Whilst we were talking, one came running and breathlessly gasped out that the body of Skinsky had been found inside the wall of the churchyard of St. Peter, and that the throat had been torn open as if by some wild animal. Those we had been speaking with ran off in horror, the woman crying out, "This is the work of a Slovak!" We hurried away, lest we should have been in some way drawn into the affair, and so detained. As we came home, we could arrive at no definite conclusion. We were all convinced that the box was on its way, by water, to somewhere, but where that might be we could have to discover. With heavy hearts we came home to the hotel in Tamina. When we met together, the first thing was to consult as to taking Mina again into our confidence. Things are getting desperate, and is at least a chance, though a hazardous one, as a preliminary step. I was released from my promise to her. Mina Harker's Journal, 30th October, evening. They were so tired and worn out and dispirited that there was nothing to be done till they came some rest. So I asked them to lie down for half an hour, whilst I should enter everything up to the moment. I feel so grateful to the men who invented the traveller's typewriter, and to Mr. Morse for getting this one for me. I should have felt quite astray doing the work if I had written with a pen. It is all done. Poor dear, dear Jonathan, what he must have suffered, what he must be suffering now. He lies on the sofa, hardly seeming to breathe. His whole body appears in collapse. His brows are knit, his face is drawn with pain. Poor fellow! Maybe he is thinking, and I can see his face all wrinkled up with concentration of his thoughts. Oh, if I could only help it all! I shall do what I can. I have asked Dr. Van Helsing, and he has got me all the papers that I have not yet seen. Whilst they are resting, I shall go over all carefully. Perhaps I may arrive at some conclusion. I shall try to follow the Professor's example, and think without prejudice on the facts before me. I do believe that under God's providence I have made a discovery. I shall get the maps and look them over. I am more than ever sure that I am right. My new conclusion is ready, so I shall get our party together and read it. They can judge it, as it is to be accurate, and every minute is precious. Mina Harker's memorandum, entered in her journal. Ground of inquiry. Count Dracula's problem is to get back to his own place. A. He must be brought back by someone. This is evident, for, had he power to move himself as he wished, he could go either as a man, or a wolf, or a bat, or some other way. He evidently fears discovery, or interference, in the state of helplessness in which he must be confined, as he is between dawn and sunset in his wooden box. B. How is he to be taken? Here a process of exclusion may help us. By road, by rail, by water. 1. By road. There are endless difficulties, especially in leaving a city. A. There are people, and people are curious and investigate. A hint, a surmise, a doubt as to what might be in the box would destroy him. B. There are, or there might be, customs and octroi officers to pass. See, his pursuers might follow. This is his greatest fear, and in order to prevent his being betrayed he has repelled, so far as he can, even his victim, me. 2. By rail. There is no one to charge of the box. It would have its chance of being delayed. Delay would be fatal, with enemies on the track. True, he might escape at night, but where he would be if left in a strange place with no refuge that he could fly to. This is not what he intends, and he does not mean to risk it. By water. Here is the safest way in one respect, but with most danger in another. On the water he is powerless except at night. Even then he can only summon fog and storm, and snow, and his wolves. But were he wrecked, the living water would engulf him. Helpless, he would indeed be lost. He could have the vessel drive to land, but if it were unfriendly land wherein he was not free to move, his position would be desperate still. We know from record that he was on water, so that we have to do is certain what was water. The first thing is to realize exactly what he has done as yet. We may then get a light on what the later task is to be. Firstly, we must consider what he did in London as part of his general plan of action, when he was pressured for moments and had to arrange as best he could. Secondly, we must see as we can surmise it from the facts we know of what he has done here. As to the first, he evidently intended to arrive at Galatz and sent envoys to Varna to deceive us lest we should ascertain his means of exit from England. His immediate and sole purpose was then to escape. The proof of this is the letter of instructions sent to Emanuel Hildesheim to clear and take away the box before sunrise. There was also the instruction to Petrov Skinsky. This we must only guess at, but there must have been some letter or message since Skinsky came to Hildesheim. That so far his plans were successful, we know. The Tsarina Catherine made a phenomenally quick journey, so much so that Captain Donelson's suspicions were aroused, but his superstition united with his canniness played the Count's game for him, and he ran with the favouring wind through fog all till he brought up blindfolded at Galatz. Then the Count's arrangements were well made, as has been proved. Hildesheim cleared the box, took it off, and gave it to Skinsky. Skinsky took it, and here we lose the trail. We only know that the box is somewhere on the water, moving along. The customs and the octroi, if there be any, have been avoided. Now we come to what the Count must have done after his arrival on land at Galatz. The box was given to Skinsky before sunrise. At sunrise the Count could appear in his own form. Here we ask why Skinsky was chosen at all to aid in the work. In my husband's diary, Skinsky is mentioned as dealing with the Slovaks who trained down the river at the port. The man's remark that the murder was the work of a Slovak showed a general feeling against his class. The Count wanted isolation. My surmise is this, that in London the Count decided to get back to his castle by water, as the most safe and secret way. It was brought from the castle by Skani, and probably they delivered the cargo to Slovaks, who took the boxes to Varna, for they were shipped for London. Thus the Count had knowledge of the persons who could arrange this service. When the box was on land, but before sunrise or after sunset, he came out from his box, met Skinsky, and instructed him to do as to arranging the cargo. For the box up some river. When this was done, he knew that all was in train. He blotted out traces, and he thought, by murdering his agent. I have examined the map and find that the river most suitable for the Slovaks to have ascended is either the Pruth or the Soreth. I read the transcript that in my trance I heard cows low and water swirling level with my ears and the creaking of wood. The Count in his box then was on a river in an open boat, propelled probably either by oars or poles, for the banks are near and it is working against stream. There would be no such sound if floating downstream. Of course, it may be either the Soreth or the Pruth, but we may possibly investigate further. Now of these two, the Pruth is the more easily navigated, but the Soreth is at Fundu joined by the Bistritza, which runs up the Borgo Pass. The loop it makes is manifestly as close to Dracula's castle as can be got by water. Mina Harker's journal continued. When I had done reading, Jonathan took me in his arms and kissed me. The others kept shaking me by both hands, and Dr. Van Helsing said, "Our dear Madam Mina, it is once more our teacher. Her eyes have seen where we were blinded. Now we are on track once again, and this time we may succeed. Our enemy is at most helpless, and if we can come on him by day, on the water our task will be over. He has a start, but he is powerless to hasten, as he may not leave his box lest those who carry him may suspect. For them to suspect would be to prompt them to throw him into the stream, where he perish. This he knows and will not. Now, men, to our council of war, for here now we must plan what each and all shall do.